Okay, welcome back to the Courage Coaching and Counseling Podcast. I'm Savan Penn, a counselor and coach here in Portland, Oregon, and this podcast is about courageously bridging the gap between where you are and where you want to be in life and in relationships. And today I'm joined by my friend Jason Pittman, a mortgage loan officer with Fairway Independent Mortgage. Jason works with individuals and couples who are taking one of the biggest leaps of their lives, becoming homeowners. Buying a home brings up a lot more than just finances. It brings up fear, hope, communication, and trust. And in this conversation, we talk about Jason's journey into business, the courage it took to believe in himself, and how he helps couples navigate big decisions with clarity and confidence. So, Jason, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Yes. One fun thing I learned, Jason, is like in the last year or two, like several friends from church, you've helped them become a homeowner. So that's cool.
You
And
know everybody though. I think everyone knows Sylvan.
and besides being a loan officer, Jason has also been my boxing and MMA coach and built me up in jujitsu as well.
You got a pretty good background coming into it. We'll say that.
All right. All right, Jason. So as we start, what inspired you to start your business and be in the mortgage business?
Well, it's funny because mortgage is one of those things where it's not like I wanted to be a doctor my whole life or a firefighter. I had the gym and we had just got done. In the old location we didn't have showers, so we eliminated the. I think we had a noon, like 11 a.m. and a noon class or something like that. And they were just kind of getting small. And a lot of it was just lack of shower, I believe. With that said, canceled that. And I need to figure out maybe something else. I was getting to the end of my fight career and I was dropping tickets to one of my fights to my buddies. Those days they give fighters strokes on
Yeah,
every ticket you sold.
and pass them out.
Go pass them out, right?
Yeah.
So I go to my buddies he owned his own real estate company and I said, gave him the tickets. I said, "Hey, how's business, man?" And wasn't really meaning it. It was kind of like, "How's your day going?" type thing. And he's like, "Oh, terrible." I said, "Why?" He was like, "Well, my dialer, the guy he had dialing their database, had just got promoted to be a real estate agent. And so he didn't have anybody to do that job." I said, "Well, bro, I just got done, our day classes. So like, I don't have to be at the gym till 4:30 every day.
Hmm.
So I'm open." And he's like, "Oh, really?" I said, "Well, how cold are those leads?" He said, "They're not cold at all." But I have a background, I sold life insurance years ago. And I always
Oh,
tell everyone like that training there for sales, like sales calls was like Navy SEAL training for sales calls. It was like pretty
hmm.
intense. They made us
Toughen up
call.
that skin.
Yeah, it really did. They made us sit there and role play and they'd act like a mean client, and they made us call. So every Monday night we had to go in there and call for like 4 hours and set
Hmm.
your calendar because you're meeting clients in their house. Like, so you had to have 6 appointments set. I think about that, like, how did I ever agree to do that? But I don't regret it. I learned a lot. So I started working for my buddy and his guy trained me up for a week and I was off to the races. And so I was basically calling the database and just kind of having conversations with people and seeing where they were at in the buying process and then
Hmm.
referring them over to the agents. And so I did that for pretty close to a year and they got slow and kind of had to lay me off. It was during the holidays, our industry gets a little slow during that time, now knowing being in it for so long. And I was getting ready for a fight anyways and was getting to the tough end of camp. The last 3 weeks are terrible. You just want to train and eat and go home and lay down. So I said, "Hey, that's fine." And he was like, "You need to get your real estate license though." I was like, all right. Well, I have the fight. And he's like, "Man, we're still slow, but my wife needs somebody to do the exact same thing, but on the lending side." So, all
Hmm.
right. So I go there and, he was kind of more, a little more of a mom and pop shop. Whereas I go there, they actually have me fill out an actual application and do all the things. And so I got in there and I just basically kept my head down at my cubicle and just dialed her database. And I was referring 5 or 6 clients to her per month. And it was funny because it started me out at hourly wage and I think they were bonusing me like $500 per deal. And so I think my second or third check, I was like, oh my God, this is wrong. They paid me too much. And
mm,
I was really worried. And I told my wife, I was, hey, don't cash the check. I don't want
mm,
them coming back going, hey, we gotta
and
take this
wanting
money
their money
back.
back.
So I call her. I went into her office and said, hey, look, you guys paid me too much. They screwed up. I want to make sure we get this right. And she was like, well, how much you make? And I tell her, and she pulls up the names. No, you refer this person, this person, this person. That's your bonus. What?
Mm,
Okay.
mm,
So that was
mm.
cool. And so I'm down, and mind
And that's
you,
motivating.
it motivated the heck out of me. And anything I do, I want to try to be the very best at it. I don't believe in wasting a bunch of time or wasting other people's
Mm,
time.
mm,
And never once did I think that I had made it because it was my buddy's wife. That was the last thing I wanted. I didn't want her to look bad. I didn't want him to look bad, all these things. So I just kept my head down and kept grinding, and I didn't know anything about mortgage, not one thing. And,
yeah.
I was literally the low man on the totem pole. The only saving grace is because I was a former, I think I was still fighting, but in my mind, knowing that was probably going to be it. I remember the branch manager would come, anybody would come to see, Jason's a pro fighter. He'd tell everyone, like, here
Mm,
I am over in the cubicle. I'm just like a freaking, I'm a lackey, I'm over there just doing that. So a few more months go by.
mm,
They call me and they're downtown. This is all way pre-COVID. And hey, you and Marcia, my wife, come down and meet us for dinner and some drinks. So
mm,
I go down there and they're like, hey, you're killing it. We want to up your pay and up your bonuses, all that. So I was like, wow, this is great. And,
mm.
this could this be something, And so a couple months go by. I talked to her.
You took right to it. It sounds like it was like a kind of a natural progression. You were a business owner, a
Yeah.
MMA gym owner, so you're
Yeah.
used to working with clients and things, but it sounds like they saw like your hard work and your success.
Yeah, I've always just like keep your head down and grind and try to learn as much as you can, whatever I'm doing, and
Mm,
the martial arts definitely teaches you that. But yeah, I just was like, and I still didn't know anything about mortgage really, but I was just all right. My job is to have these conversations with clients, and I know what I hate. I don't like people getting on the phone with me and hey, all salesy, and so I would just kind of have conversations and then share early on, I realized share, Marcia and I's experience in home buying and put people at ease on those
mm,
calls, which
mm,
led to be a huge skill to have
mm,
later on in my career. So I'm doing that for a while. A couple more months go by, and I'm like, yeah, meet up with her. I said, hey, what's the end game in this? Like I'm no spring
mm.
chicken. I'm in my 40s at the time, early 40s, and
Wow. Mm,
she was like, well, the next logical step for you is to get licensed and, originate loans. And I'm
mm,
like, that seems scary. And so
mm,
it's a super hard test, right? The loan officer test is brutal.
mm,
So I'm studying for it. And, mind you, like I said, I did life insurance. I was licensed in life and health before. And that was easy. That was so easy. But you go through, you read the information, you go, and it's a pass. Easy pass. So I go to do this. And I remember the day I was at the office and him going to take my test and all the OGs, if you will. It's like
mm.
six of them come up and said, hey, man, don't be surprised. Don't be discouraged if you fail. And like each one
Okay.
of them, I was like, and I'm like, what are you talking about? I'm going to go crush this thing.
Can you
And I
can you
didn't,
imagine can you imagine if you're getting ready to step into the cage and like your entire corner says, "Don't worry about if you lose and you
if
get
this guy
crushed."
kills you, yeah, and so I'm like, well, this is different, right? And mind you,
Okay.
I'm still very heavy in MMA at the time.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, this is okay.
Mm,
I go in there, of course I fail, and I'm all butthurt. Maybe this isn't for me, for like a couple of minutes.
okay.
And then I was just like, well, in MMA, if you lose or find yourself in a bad spot for a while in the fight and find a way to win or whatever, you go back and you fix that problem, right?
Go
You
back to
go
the drawing board
go back to the
and get
drawing
better.
board and figure it out.
Mm,
And so that's what I did. And so there was a gal that was at our company, left our company, go to another company, and she had failed her first test. She missed hers by one. I missed mine by like, I don't know, seven. I don't know what it was. So her and I get together at her office in the conference room. We had all our study material up on the big screen, and we went through and we studied. We were kind of studying once or twice a week, and then we test again. And I miss it by 2, and she misses it by 1 again. And again, I'm like, man, maybe this isn't for me. But stubbornness is weird. Sometimes it's good, sometimes it's bad. I guess in this time it was good. Where I
mm,
was like, man, you don't ever quit on stuff. Like,
mm,
figure it out. Get
mm,
your training right. And so I added another training material. And then, this is, back 2014, 15, something like that. I got the training material. So I added like these videos. And the videos kicked us over the hump because the lady, if I ever meet that lady, I'm like, hey, I owe you a dinner, because the lady on the videos had all these things that helped me remember, almost like, jujitsu, there's certain weird saying, oh, you get there and you're in
mm,
the, dog fight or whatever, so it helped me and it helped her. We just, all right, I think in the back of our minds, it's kind of like it's this time or it's not happening, because they make
mm,
you wait after that third test. They make you wait for 6 months to test
mm,
again. And they give
mm,
you, at the time, I don't know how they do it now, but at the time they had 5 different tests they give you. So if you fail the one, they give you another one. And and fail the other one, then they give you the third. And so I went in there the third time, got, passed it, flying colors. Oh, huge
nice.
relief,
Yeah.
and was able to hang my license. And then
Mm,
I just
mm,
started being the assistant for her. And, as a license, because when you're licensed, you can talk rates and all the things, you can do all the stuff. When you're not, you can't talk rates, and which is a big part of the job. And so she allowed me, because most loan officer assistants are kind of behind the scenes, they're a little more operational. They enter stuff in the computer and all the things. She allowed me to get out there and continue to bring in business, which, I'm forever grateful for that. And so I was just thinking of all kind of random things to like try to get business. Like, what if we did
mm,
this? We
mm,
were at this, we'd have a booth at this place, we'd have a booth
mm,
at that place. I'd join this networking group. I'd do this, do that. And it kind of started, she allowed me to figure that out.
mm,
And we left that company, and we were there for, I think, a year and a half. And then they called everyone in on like a Friday. You got to be on this call on Friday. And they're like, we're getting rid of all retail,
mm,
so effective next Friday, no one, you no longer have a job type thing. But we were already kind of, she was talking with Fairway at the time. And, my boss, Trace Marl, that's my bro. I love that dude. He made an offer she couldn't refuse. I was like, man, this is awesome. Great. Let's do it. And that's really where I feel like my career started taking off. Um, just because Fairway has so many, like, they're the standard. I have the other companies to compare it
mm,
to. It's like if you're a kid that normally, wears volume shoe store shoes, and all of a sudden you get a pair of Jordans. It was like a major jump in the way
mm.
they did business. And
Okay.
and that's why I've stayed. It's been over about 7.5 years that I've worked there, and I've been in the industry, next month's 12.
Nice. Nice. Yeah. All right. So you 12 years in the industry and 7 years with Fairway. So now I want to pick your brain about just, what couples can do to prepare to buy a home, or even make the decision to buy a home here at the start of 2026. Right? It's something they've been dreaming about, thinking about. But rewinding even from those couples that want to do that this year. What about the couples that, like, I'm not sure if that will ever be possible for us. How, and maybe they're renting an apartment, Jason. How do you help couples decide whether it's a smart decision to buy a house versus continuing to rent? And what do you like kind of need to see with them to help them make that decision?
Oh, that's a big part of my job. I would say the first thing that I talk to people about, and I teach a bunch of homebuyer classes too to this day.
Oh, okay.
And the first thing that I tell people is, hey, don't listen to, everyone thinks they're a home buying expert, right? Like, just like the UFC guy, fanboys think they know about fighting and they don't.
Hmm,
It's even more so in the home buying space.
hmm,
Even if you bought a house like our house now, we bought in 2018. Our first one we bought in '04, but the both of the markets during that time are completely different. All the rules change, all these things, right? So a lot of times people are getting advice from, Joe in the break room telling them, back when I bought this, it was this way, or they heard this or heard that, or someone from church told them this thing. So get with a professional, right? And preferably on the lending side, just because the realtor, they know X amount of this side of the game, but this is what we do, right? So I want to
Mm.
look at income first, right? I want to kind of see, we need to see what people been, you got to have at least 2 years work experience. And you think most adults would have that, but sometimes they don't, which is, you know, basically tangible work experience. You can't be, you know, uh, babysitting for your daughter and getting money under the table or cutting lawns. These are things I've heard people do. And, where it's under the table money, it's got to be trackable,
Sure.
money you claim on your taxes, all that kind of thing. So we create that. All right, where are we at for 2 years? What's the income we're working with? And then I start talking to people about like their liabilities that they're paying on a monthly basis. The big three, right? You got your car payment, credit cards, and student loans. Some
Mm.
people have student loans, all don't, but most people have a car payment, most people have credit cards. And then you have, people, maybe there's a personal loan that they took or whatever that's out there. Your cell phone, that kind of stuff doesn't show up on your credit, but a lot of these other things do. And we're looking at the actual payment to these things, not your actual balance of these things. So I think that's another big
Your monthly
misconception.
payment for those things.
Yeah, because a lot of people are like, man, I got to get my credit cards paid down. I owe 20 grand on them. That's fine. What's your payment to those? Because that's
Mm.
what quantifies, right? So we look at the overall debt payment that's going out. Obviously, we look at the credit score and look at income. But I would say, to me, like, unless a person's credit's really, really bad, it's more of the income in today's, especially us on the West Coast. I own a property in the Midwest. I bought that for $130,000 like 3 years ago. And it's different, it's way cheaper there. Whereas you're a first time home buyer in the Northwest and, you're looking at probably $400,000 at least, right? And
For
so
first time.
for a first time home buyer.
Wow.
And
Okay.
so how can we make that work? We can't use 100% of someone's income. That, to me, that's the big thing. But just taking a look at it and kind of figuring out what makes the most sense, what loan program works best for their situation. Do they have money for a down payment? Are their parents gifting them money for a down payment? What's our market like? Is it crazy hot where sellers aren't giving anything towards closing costs? All those things, that I put into play to see what best fits this person or couple or whatever.
Yeah. So what would you say are some of the fears or misunderstandings that couples have about buying a home?
Yeah, I would say one of the big fears, like you always hear like a set dollar amount. Like I'll hear people, I don't have $60,000 for a down payment, or I don't have $20,000 or 20% down, or I don't have an 800 credit score. And honestly, you don't need those things. There's a lot of different programs out there
Mm.
that we offer, but paralysis by analysis, right? Like people, I heard this, so I'm not going to do anything. I can have a 25, 30-minute phone call with someone, figure out where they're at, look at their situation. We don't even have to do a hard inquiry on their credit and let them know where they're at. And most people aren't ready right then and there, and that's fine. And we can help them get into the right, because like sometimes I'll have, a couple where either the husband or the wife is taking some time off and they're gonna be working in 3 months. And then what will that look like? How long will they
Mm.
have to be back to work? How long were they off in between jobs? And then what's that new income going to do to our overall outlook? You know,
Mm.
and another
Mhm.
thing that people don't think about, especially the first time home buyer, is that you don't have to be married and you can have as many people on your loan as you want. I've done loans with 5 people, five
Mm.
brothers, a
Okay.
mom, a dad, on the loan with their son, uncles on there, grandmas on there, friends on there, like any of that,
Mm.
non-occupant co-borrowers as they're called
Mm.
is
Okay.
fine. And a lot of people are don't know that that's a resource that they have.
Oh, yeah. You gotta get creative.
And
I didn't
yeah, you
realize that.
really do. Because say you're able to financially pay for that mortgage payment, but that $4,000 a month you're making on your side hustle, I can't use.
Mm.
Well, let's put Uncle Robert on the loan. And then I
Okay.
figure out a way to get them off, like let's get this person, 3 to 5 years is usually the plan to get that co-borrower off the loan. As the fair market value of their property goes up and their overall
Ah,
principal goes down, as time goes by, hey, yeah, people, yeah, in a year, I'm going to be making, prevailing pay. That's going to be $4 an hour different or whatever it's going to be. We start setting that up and we make sure we're structuring things that they know that's our goal in 3 to 5 years to get this other person off the loan. So a lot of times most of the time, people don't realize that's an option.
nice. So with your experience, Jason, you're giving them resources, you're giving them like creative solutions to figure out the details. As a marriage counselor, I'm curious about communication and dynamics with couples. So is this something that you're seeing in your office like as you're talking through things, what are you noticing about communication with couples as they make this big decision?
Well, I would say 95% of the time, maybe even higher, it's one or the other is the designated person. Like they're getting the contact point the whole entire time.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So
Occasionally
email, phone,
the
it's
whole
kind of
thing,
one communication person.
one communication. Now, sometimes like I met with a couple, I think it was last Friday, went over to their house. They were awesome, and I like to do that too, and just make sure everyone's hearing the same thing. You know, they had questions for me. I like to sit across the table from them, realize that, they can look me in the eye, realize I ain't a liar, I ain't a scumbag. I'm just trying to set them straight. And that helps quite a bit. But most of the
Mm,
time,
hmm,
I'll get a husband or I'll get a wife, one or the other. Hey, I'm like, hey, so as I'm getting their information, are you going to be the point of contact? You want me to add your wife's? No, it's just going to be me or vice versa. So
okay. Yeah.
it's funny, but that's usually how it is. For us, it's me. My wife she locks us down on every other aspect,
Okay.
but like the big ticket items, houses and cars, that's my wheelhouse.
Okay. So what is one challenge as people start the process that gets them off track or makes them, pull the ejection seat? And what's one solution you have for that? Like if you
I
could
would I would say
encourage people.
sometimes it's just it's credit stuff because credit stuff takes a little longer, but people kind of get in their own way. Like they get in
Mm,
their own head, like they're all hot and heavy. You talk to them, and then you call them back, say, "Hey, look, credit score is maybe 20 points too low. Here's what we got to do to get the score up. I'm going to call you back in 2 weeks." I call back just to make sure they've started the process, and a lot of times they haven't.
uh,
Yeah, we
okay.
don't know, if this is, if it's meant for us to buy a house and all that. And, I kind of talk them through, look, we just need you to get on these things. It's going to be easy. I've personally had to do it multiple times. I think all 3 houses we bought, you know, you know, credit is,
You bring the credit score up.
yeah, you're constantly having to fight your credit. Right. And
Okay.
so
Mm,
I would say that's one of them. The other is people's resistant on adding new debt, keeping their eye on the prize. If you're wanting to buy a house,
hmm.
don't go buy a new truck, right? Last time I
Oh,
checked your credit, you had a $500 a month car payment, truck payment. Now it's $1,800, which I've seen that.
oof.
That just completely knocks you down. You went from qualifying for a $600,000 house to now a $350,000 house or whatever it is. It's like
Oh,
it kills you. So those type of things, just people not being aware of what the overall goal is. But I think a lot of that again comes back to the outside noise, listening to people from work, even listening to media, because a lot of times the media is talking on a national basis, or they've heard snippets of this or that, or, whatever their agenda is, but they're not really in it. But a little bit of that can mess with someone's head and we're just going to wait, you know,
mm,
and then
mm.
they call me when, it's fever pitch, right? The person they've been renting their house from wants to sell it now. And now they're freaking out,
Oh, okay. Now they're scrambling.
scrambling. Yeah.
So looking at your credit score, doing
Yep.
what you need to do to increase it or maintain it, avoiding adding on new debt. Is there anything else that is like an actionable step that would help couples like be more ready to buy a house?
I would say for self-employed people, it's the most sensitive for them. If you're self-employed, you need to establish that footprint for at least 2 years because we're looking at 2 years of taxes. That's the measuring stick, if you will, for qualifying. I wish it was 1 year, but that's not my rule, right? It's not a fairway rule. It's just a rule across lending. It's like they need to see 2 years of self-employed. And with that said, people who are self-employed, they're self-employed, they wanna write everything off. And with people who are self-employed and they're talking to me earlier on, I have these conversations. Like, "Hey, look, we need a 2-year average. So if last year you made it look like you made 8 grand but, oh, this year was a really good year, we're still going on a 2-year average. So
Mm.
it's gonna kill things." So getting in front of that with self-employed. The other one that's huge is the multiple jobs thing. And a lot of people don't know this. And it's a rule that I wish was different. But again, it's not my rule. So what I'm saying is like, most everyone these days, they have their main job, they got a side hustle or a part-time job or whatever. It's just, people need income. I get it.
Yeah,
Like
lots of folks are driving for Uber and
driving
delivery.
Uber, driving Lyft, all these things. And so the rule is if you have your steady job and you have this other job, say it's part-time, I work down at Walmart on the side.
Yeah.
You gotta have both jobs simultaneously for 2 years, and a lot of people
Oh.
don't know that.
So if you
So,
do seasonal work at a retail store, like during holiday, that can mess things up?
it can mix things up. If we see it 2 years and the verification of employment's like, "Hey, yeah, he's continuing to have seasonal work," we can probably make that go. I usually run
Okay.
that up to the underwriters,
Okay.
but,
Mm,
because the reason being is, like, part-time work is variable hours, right?
mm.
And I always tell people it boils down to your capacity to repay the loan. So if we qualified you in your side job at an extra 3 grand a month, but we can't really guarantee it's going to be 3 grand a month. Well, then on the lending side, we're going to veer at the side of caution and go, no, like we need to see that longer. And, I know guys, I've had people who've had 3 or 4 jobs, but it's the same thing. If we're going to use that income, that 2-year thing, and it's the same thing,
It's gotta be consistent and
consistent.
over 2 years. I see.
Yeah, and then so
Mm,
they average it out, and they're just basically making sure that you're not gonna quit your side job, right? For
mm.
one, you have the capacity to work that. Okay, yeah, you've worked for 2 jobs simultaneously for 2 years. It's probably that's your jam, you're gonna continue to do it, and then they're gonna average out that second job over a 2-year span on what income we can use, and then we go from there, and I usually take all that and I run it up to our underwriting scenario desk and let them look and let them underwrite it takes a couple extra days, it's not long, but I let them take a look at the income and give us the income for the file. That way we're locked in.
You have a solid number.
Solid number. I don't
Yeah.
wanna
Okay.
guess.
Nice. Yeah. So or is there any mistakes that you see people make that cost them time or money? And is there any advice that you would have to like avoid a mistake?
Another one that people will do is they don't really understand the importance of sticking with their job that we initially talked about,
Mm,
right? Especially if you're W-2, you're salaried, you're getting paid 90 grand a year. Cool, that's what we're rolling with. And then if you come back to me with, "Oh, I switched, now I'm making less," that's a problem. Or if you went
mm,
from W-2 to 1099 work,
mm,
you might be a full-time 1099 employee, but 9 times out of 10 with 1099, they wanna see that 2 years again. Having that conversation with your loan expert before doing it, a lot of times it's just people going, I had a guy one time, he had a solid salary. He's like, "Man, I can go over here though. It's gonna be going this other place doing the exact same thing he was doing, but it was commission based, which
mm,
he was gonna make way more money."
mm,
But I was like, "Hey man, stick with your job right now, find a property. The normal time from contract to close is 30 days, and then you can go do what you want." But he didn't do it, and
mm.
so he had to wait. Mhm.
That was a big mistake. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Is there a couple that you helped that really represents why you do what you do? A story that makes you love helping.
Yeah. I mean, I've had several couple like I was telling somebody this the other day. I have some clients that are just like, "Man, we need some time apart," right? They've called me on the hour, asking me questions, texting me, and
Okay.
then they don't do half the stuff we ask them to do, and it's just like a big headache. And
Okay.
then I've had a lot of
So So for listeners, don't do that to your loan officer. Okay.
I mean, I'm there, I'm available, but it's funny because, everyone, we're so used to clicking on this and clicking on that. I'm
Mm,
not a bot, I have a life, and, I get to a certain time in the evening, business can be handled tomorrow.
yeah.
Unless you're actively shopping and we're in a hot market, well, then that's a little different. If you're actively shopping and you need me to get you a pre-approval, that's different. But I've had a lot of clients that are it's freaking delightful, man. They're just the best clients. They're super appreciative. A lot of hard work goes into what we do on this end of things. I mean, I know a lot of times, people don't realize what goes into financing, for homes, but the people that do, it's just been great. Like there's a gentleman that we missed it this last summer, but Carol Lee, she's a real estate agent, and one of our clients, we usually get together with him at least once a year, go over, do a little barbecue. He smokes cigars, I smoke cigars, and consider him a friend. A couple others that are friends, that I've made friends through
Mm,
this transaction. No, I'm not necessarily. I mean, I'm not trying to sound cocky. I got a lot of friends, but it's awesome. Like, man, these people are cool people. They're very grateful, and it's just
mm.
and to listen to what we told them to do, and just some of our transactions are seamless. And then others not so much. But a lot of times it's not on us. We're going by the playbook that we have, and we tell people exactly what they're gonna do. But listening's an art sometimes.
So uh it sounds like the kind of the happy endings are where you're in it and you kind of fight through together and get to the other side and get into that home and
Yeah,
um
and I've
yeah.
had another one recently where she had a lot of stuff going on in her personal life, like, some very devastating things that happened to her
Hmm,
with family members and stuff, and she was single mom, and it was like, shit, I'm almost getting emotional about it. It's like crazy. But, I wanted so bad to
mm,
do anything we could do to get this done for her because she went through
mm,
so much.
yeah.
I was just like, man, she was like, and she was crying to me on the phone. Oh
Mm,
my God, this is happening. I don't know what's more I can do. I said, we're going to get this done one way or another, one way or another. And it was just like the worst
mhm,
luck of everything. She had a couple different grant programs that she was trying to work with, and
mhm,
they tell her one thing and switch to that. And
mm,
me and the agent were like, nah, we're getting it no matter what. And we got her done. And that's why I do what I do. She was just elated. And I had a post on Facebook. I don't know, with something mortgage probably. It's either mortgage or jujitsu usually when I'm posting on Facebook. But she chimed in, hey, thanks so much for what you did. And that meant a lot. But I always look at everything like, what if it was me? What if I was in that situation? And I know from buying houses and all that you need the people. You chose us for a reason, right? So we gotta really work our tails off because everyone isn't that ideal client that makes six figures, great credit, bunch of money down. Most people aren't that way. Most people got all these other things going on, and the one thing they want is a roof over their head for their children, maybe other family members. And so
yeah.
I take a lot of that to heart, and maybe it's the way I grew up, but
Hmm,
yeah, it's just that one got me. Almost had me crying, man.
mm. Yeah.
Yeah, that one
Well,
got me. It was a
that
good one though.
that's your heart, and those are the wins
Yeah.
that are highlights.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah. Well, we'll put your contact info in the show notes, Jason. Thanks so much for sharing your story and your wisdom today. And for our listeners, if you're standing on the edge of a big decision, whether it's starting a business or buying a home or just simply believing in yourself again, I hope this conversation reminded you that courage doesn't mean that you're having it all figured out. You don't have to have a perfect credit score. You don't have to have it all lined up. Courage often looks like taking the next right step and asking for help and staying connected to the people who matter most along the way and connecting with experts
Yeah.
that know the deal. So thanks for listening to the Courage Coaching and Counseling Podcast, Jason. Thanks for being here with us.
Thank you.
All right, we'll see you out there.